And tonight, a former FEC chairman calling the IRS targeting scandal part of a long-term assault on First Amendment rights. Former chairman of the Federal Election Commission, Bradley Smith, joins us. Good evening, sir.
Hi, Greta. Nice to be with you.
Nice to have you. So explain to me why it's part of a long-term assault on the First Amendment, this scandal.
Well, for many years, people in the name of campaign finance reform have essentially tried to shut up political speech that they don't agree with. Sometimes they don't agree with it because it's funded by what they call big money. Sometimes they just, and more often, just don't agree with it. And what you have here, for example, is a classic effort to put pressure on conservative groups. Nobody suggests that these groups are corrupting office holders or anything. They just don't like these groups, and so they've put them under attack. They've harassed their donors. They have tied them up in legal proceedings and generally attempted to make it tough for them to speak out on politics.
Well, I think one of the most painful things about this this whole IRS scandal is not so much that the organizations were denied tax-exempt status or 501c4 status, but that they were put into a holding pattern. Because while you're in a holding pattern, while they keep asking for more information, send you another questionnaire or whatever, you are denied the ability to even appeal an adverse decision. They would have been better off with a denial, than to be put in this limbo. I mean, that's actually the more troubling aspect, is they got put in this holding position, and there was nothing they could do.
Well, that's right. It puts them in a sort of a limbo. If they're at least told no, then they can go about some other course of action to do what they want to do. But what is going on here with this sort of holding action that's strange is that there's no tax benefit at all to the FE or to the IRS holding them up. That is to say, they don't, tax-exempt groups, these groups want it to be 501c4s, right? Those groups don't pay taxes. If they were not 501c4s, they would have had to be qualified as 527s. These are just sections of the tax code. 527s don't pay taxes either. What is the difference? 527s are regulated more heavily as political groups. They have to expose their donors. Many people who have nothing to do with these ads, just their general membership list, all have to be made public. And then these people are often harassed and bullied. They fear official government retaliation and they fear unofficial retaliation. And they're left in this limbo. And you know what's really weird is that you don't have to get IRS permission to be a C4. So the IRS, by harassing these groups, is just making it more likely that in the future the groups won't apply for IRS status at all. They'll just start operating, and then you don't know at all what they're doing, if they're operating legally or not. So the IRS, in a sense, is shooting itself in the foot. And why is it doing it? As near as anybody can tell, it's because of a general hostility toward political activity by conservative groups, and also, I think, just by new groups and by outside groups, groups that haven't been players in the field already.
You know, it's very difficult to prove things like discrimination. And that's essentially what this is discrimination. And I suppose that the most effective way would be is if the IRS would sort of open the door and let us have an accounting of how many liberal groups or progressive groups had this type of analysis or scrutiny compared to the number of conservative or Tea Party groups. I mean, that, it seems to me, would be a good start. Do you agree or not?
Well, I do, and it takes us back to the original point. I mean, it'd be really nice, you know, everybody's talking about, is there a smoking gun? Is there a direct trail leading back to the White House? I think that's really kind of irrelevant. I mean, it would be big news if there was, but the real story here is creating this culture of harassment, this idea that participating in politics is somehow a bad thing, and that these Tea Party groups were being bad. You know, in 2010, at about the time the IRS began this targeting, President Obama, on at least 4 occasions, specifically suggested that maybe these were front groups for foreign operations. David Axelrod, his close consultant, made that accusation directly, and so did numerous other underlings. At one point, President Obama called them a problem for democracy, and then 2 weeks later, he upped that to a threat to democracy. Now, when you have your leaders putting that kind of thing out there, when you have Senator Baucus and Senator Schumer and Senator Franken and Senator Merkley and Senator Shaheen and several other Democratic senators writing to the IRS saying, these groups are dangerous, you need to investigate them, what do we think the IRS is going to do? They're people. They read this, they see this, they know these are powerful people who are telling them these groups are a threat to democracy, you need to get them. And that's the real scandal here. It's not that there was a smoking gun.
Well, then you got to take it to the next chapter, which is now that they've gotten caught with their pants down, now they've been caught targeting. Is that now what's the explanation for the leader? What's the culture? The culture now has evolved where the president now says it's phony. It's phony for someone to feel wronged by it, having been unfairly scrutinized. So now to continue your narrative is now the president is saying it's phony. And like this is no big deal. That's the message he's sending to this scrutiny.
Well, I think that's right. That adds to the idea as well that this isn't a scandal. It's one argument that some have been trying to make, that these groups deserved what they're getting. The problem is that the IRS wasn't tough enough on them. And this, again, to me, is a real problem in our society. We should be encouraging this kind of grassroots political participation. And the Tea Party movement is nothing if not grassroots. It truly is a wonderfully spontaneous, organic movement. We should be encouraging that, not saying this is a bad thing. And certainly the president and various senators should not be out there saying these people are a threat to our democracy. Investigate them, check them, harass them, slow them up.
Well, I just wish that some members of the media would actually go out and talk to the Tea Party members and find out a lot of them. They're teachers, they're shopkeepers, they're airline pilots, a little bit of everything, but they have been demonized considerably, this grassroots organization, which is stunning. I don't think the media has even spoken to them because I think they have a different view. But I'm going to take the last word on that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.